Welcome back to Nifilmism. I'm Ryan.
I'm Drew.
And like everybody else, we saw Captain Marvel.
Yes, we went to that mass that nobody ever wants to go to, but goes anyways because of obligation slash I don't know. That's just what you do on a Saturday or Sunday.
Yeah, I saw it this past Sunday. When did you see it?
I saw it I think Friday afternoon.
Okay.
Friday afternoon.
I wish I had something productive to say about it.
It was better than I expected. That's just because everybody's been kind of beating at it, and I'm wondering if that's because of the whole like faked we don't like men aspect of this movie, which I kind of want to get into a little bit.
We can, because unfortunately, there's more to say about that than there is
Than
about the movie
yeah.
itself.
Yeah, do you want the TLDR, everybody? It's Marvel boilerplate. It's about as good as Black Panther, except Marvel looked at Black Panther and they were like, "Huh, there was like a grassroots following that kind of took up the torch for this being like, hey, look, a major studio made a movie for us." So Marvel internally decided, well, I'm getting this. It went like this. How's the movie? Just like this. How's the movie? Good. Which is basically how every Marvel movie is. Like, it's good. It's not incompetent. It's not terrible. It's good. But then the studio was like, how can we get more buzz going into press junkets? And then they were like, how about we direct everybody involved in the junkets to make it out like this is a super feminist agenda movie? And my only exposure to any of Brie Larson's comments are through the Red Letter Media video, which of course is edited and doesn't really try to make her look bad, but kind of uses it in a funny light. And what I get from it is it feels like she was directed to say things because she doesn't seem like the way she talks, at least in those like segments that they showed, that she really cares about that.
Let's put a pin in that whole bag of worms. Let's talk about the movie first, and then we'll get back into the rest of it.
Okay.
But yeah, I do think that is more interesting. But if we start talking about that now,
Yeah, it will never get to.
We'll never get to the actual movie
of the movie.
So weird editing.
Yes.
Like, the structure of the movie. I mean, I understand framing devices. In some cases, a framing device works, like Annihilation. You know right from the get-go that they survive, or at least Natalie Portman survives.
Without getting into spoilers, which we will get into, but like just up front, it feels like they wanted there to be mystery to this movie, but when there were two mysteries, they decided, no, that's too much for our audience to take, so let's just completely derail the more interesting mystery and then have a little subversion at the end. That's okay, but you had two good plots, and you decided to completely half-ass one and ruin it through editing, which unfortunately is the carry-through plot of the movie that you already know by like the first 5 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, that's it. Review over. Everyone, have a great night. Thanks for listening. If you're going to use a framing device like the one that they use, you need to have some other mystery in the main plot that can keep things going. And they didn't add that in.
No, they hastily got rid of it because they show you too much of it very early. When this movie started having its initial trailers, I think I said to you, I hope they do a Manchurian Candidate type plot here.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. And they did, but they completely exposed it so early that you're just looking for like, all right, when are they going to show that the Kree spoiler are the bad guys? But in the back of your head, you know they already are because these characters, one major Kree character was a bad guy in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
Granted, he's very little in this movie. And then Jibon Hanso plays the same character who was an antagonist at the very, very beginning of Guardians of the Galaxy. So you already know some of these characters are bad guys.
I guess
you're supposed to be surprised when they are.
I guess we're into spoilers at this point.
Yeah.
So when Ronan the Accuser shows up, at that point...
Now, bringing in just comic knowledge, Ronan the Accuser is basically a Judge Dredd, so he's morally gray, but like he was a villain in a Marvel movie. He's not going to change in the 15 years it's been since this movie took place to when he actually shows up.
Yeah. So when did he first show up in the movies? Was it Thor?
His first movie was Guardians. He was the antagonist of Guardians. That's hard to remember because Guardians had the weakest antagonist of any film.
So wait, who did he give the dance off with?
With Star-Lord at the end of Guardians.
Okay.
Yeah.
You see, that's the point where we're at with the Marvelverse.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen the first Guardians of the Galaxy in a number of years.
No, driving over here, another spoiler. This movie goes into the Tesseract or the Cosmic Cube a lot. And I was driving over here and was thinking, holy shit, did they just retcon Captain America? Because we know in Captain America that the Tesseract was on Earth in the 40s. It's on Earth in 1989 and in 1995, but did Annette Bening bring it there, or did she just find it and realize what it was? That would have helped to have been explained. Because the way the movie kind of just glosses over it is that she had it in 89. But nobody in S.H.I.E.L.D. knows what it is. Which is kind of weird. But then I think, didn't it disappear with Red Skull?
Yeah, I thought it disappeared at the end of Captain America.
Because I haven't, again, you have to have watched all these, but I don't religiously watch them all the time. I'm like, did it land in the giant super jumbo jet or in the super stealth bomber with Captain America? But then I'm like, no, it went with Red Skull because he like teleported to like across the universe and it disappeared with him. But like, that's where we are. We're getting to the point where the comic book movies are as incomprehensible as the comics themselves, which is one of the reasons why I got out of comics themselves.
This is getting into almost Game of Thrones territory, where
it's worse because there's so much more legwork you have to do now to catch yourself up. Granted, I will say this movie relies heavily on everything else because it's a prequel. So a lot of stuff doesn't make sense to somebody who's seeing a lot of things for the first time.
So let's analyze it as a standalone film. It would therefore have a ton of confusing parts because if you're walking in, let's say that you're younger and this is your first theater experience with a Marvel movie, and maybe, you know, your parents haven't shown you 10 years worth of Marvel movies.
Exactly.
And how are you supposed to follow any of this stuff that's going on?
Any tongue-in-cheek humor in the movie is pretty reliant on you knowing what it's referencing.
So when Darth Maul shows up, Ronan the Accuser, I mean.
Yeah.
When Darth Maul shows up,
when Ronan the Accuser shows up, and I spend the entire time of his 2 scenes on film wondering if it was Lee Pace until the credits proved to me that it was, because he didn't have the stupid black crying crow makeup on that he had in Guardians, and I'm like, is that Lee Pace or did they just recast him?
I thought he was recast.
I thought so too, because I was like, they recast Hugo Weaving. Lee Pace didn't play a huge role in Guardians. Maybe they just recast him. Nope, he came back for like 5 seconds of screen time, which means he's probably going to show up again somewhere if he's, in another Marvel movie again for 5 minutes, like I said, at most.
But at least with Darth Maul, that was done more as an Easter egg, and it wasn't integral to the plot of the movie.
Yeah, and it was.
I hated it. But
yeah, and it kind of was like, we know people are shitting on Solo, and you're surprised by the point you're in this movie that this is an entertaining Star Wars movie, and now we know that it's going nowhere because they're not doing the standalones, I guess, anymore. But yeah, it was kind of like it was almost like I'm going to show you my ass and fart in your face. Because everybody's like, we don't need a Solo prequel. And then it's like, well, how about we also have like teaser for a Darth Maul prequel movie just to fuck with you more.
The Star Wars fans are going to get what they deserve when they don't get anything else.
Oh my god, I would love if it was just done and we could just be like, yeah, there are so many of these movies and like only the original 3 are any good.
That's a conversation that we've had.
Enough.
But this movie showing up, all I could think of was Solo when he showed up.
Yeah.
But in this movie, though, he was way more a part of the plot because that was your cue to figure out that the Kree were
not on the level. Yeah.
If you had no idea that the Kree weren't already villains in another movie, if that was your cue, if you remembered Ronan the Accuser, okay, maybe there's something weird going on here. I I'm not a huge Marvel fanboy. I watch these like you said because going to church.
Yeah. Well, even with the Marvel knowledge, they still could have carried along the like the are they duping her plot line, I guess. Um, just by virtue of in Marvel, any of the space empires are always morally gray, just because they're space empires, they're conquering empires, regardless of what
Yeah.
side they're on. They subjugate other races in the galaxy, so they're all bad in some way.
I never thought I'd say this, but this could have used some Jeff Goldblum. Not my favorite movie in the series, but anyway, I digress.
Ragnarok had more character, though. It definitely,
did.
granted, it was aping the character of Guardians films, but I think I said I'm going to see Cinematic Beige. And while I did enjoy this movie, enjoy being a simplification, no, an over exaggeration of the term. I didn't hate myself after walking out, but no, it was just standard boilerplate, like we've said before.
And the '90s soundtrack.
Horrible soundtrack choices. Editing, like we vaguely said, had kind of ruined some of the plot elements, and soundtrack selection was poorly used. But then again, it made me sad because it made me realize at the time period of this movie, we were like preteens or early teens.
Yeah.
And we're already at the point where it's like, oh, this movie's trying to be something we remember, and it's not like how we remember.
I remember enough to know that grunge people weren't wearing Nine Inch Nails shirts.
Yeah, it's one of those, oh crap, I'm old enough to know that this is a simulacrum and not a simulation.
Yeah, you open with a Blockbuster
Stuff like that was like funny.
and a Radio
Cheap.
Shack.
Yeah. But I think just we want to firmly establish that we're in the 90s with soundtrack was unnecessary because you had funny things like shitty internet, Nick Fury having a pager. Like, that was relevant enough to be like, oh crap, like they don't have an easy way out of every situation. The fact that they go to file stacks in 95,
Yeah.
file stacks were a thing, even though computers existed. Like, things like that were kind of like, oh cool, like ways around little weird intricacies of the plot. The fact that anytime she has to contact her superior officer, she has to use a payphone.
And hotwire it.
Yeah,
In
hotwire
some
a
futuristic-
hardline phone. Something that, like, what's a hardline phone, Mom?
So I think that the movie was supposed to score points with our generation by going for the whole 90s thing, but it didn't really do much for me.
No.
It's not like anybody has ever looked back on much of the 90s and has felt super nostalgic for it.
It had its little like snicker value in like how funny would it have been to be in like the cities where they shot and style casting call like we need 1995, 1996 and older Tauruses, like just for car scenes. Like, how funny is it that stuff that we just think of as junkers were like, we need a lot of these to make this look right? And I found that kind of stuff funny, but no, I feel like maybe the time period, like in the prequel element, was like also a crutch for like this is a pretty simple story, but we want something that makes it a little bit more interesting, at least for hey, look, it's not like happening now. It's not like every other Marvel movie that's contemporary. It's older.
The soundtrack, going back just a minute though, the soundtrack, if you put on a best of the 90s playlist on Spotify, then you know what? Cool. It was a 90s soundtrack, and I can appreciate it as a 90s soundtrack.
But it was.
I don't think that it fits some of the scenes in the movie.
No. Scene usage is where I'm getting at. Like,
Yes.
Like, you could have an eclectic, we're going to take, now that's what I call 90s, and it would work fine, like, when they're driving to what looked like Mount Cheyenne. Like,
Yeah.
hey, they're going to listen to contemporary radio, or when she meets her best friend from the Air Force, and she's just listening to the radio. Like, that's where you use it. Not in fight scenes, and not in pivotal, like, this is when the story gets heavy scenes. Do you misuse pop songs from the 90s?
Yeah. I think part of it, too, is just covering for the fact that Marvel can't write a decent score to save their lives. Even the Avengers' main theme, compared to some of the classics, like the Danny Elfman Batman soundtrack.
I don't know. I think the Avengers theme is iconic at this point. It's just there's so many characters that they try to give their own themes that have a little bit of the Avengers theme in them to be like a tie-in that like everybody else's has no value.
What's the term for that? Leitmotif?
Yeah, a leitmotif.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Avengers leitmotif is completely iconic at this point, but so many character themes use it, and the fact that they don't really use a lot of orchestral in any of the Marvel standalones anymore, because I think they want to save that for the Avengers movies to make them have, even in a Plinketism, even if you didn't notice it, your brain did.
Right.
That those movies are more valuable, and I'm fine with that. Honestly, if you want to use just a not in the sense of this movie, but a 90s-esque thing of we're going to use whatever's popular on the radio because we have deals with Sony Music or whatever to push our movie. If you want to do that for some of the standalones, like it's a pivotal element of the Guardians movies,
yes,
plot-wise, which is genius. But if you want to do it with some of these, it makes sense here, but it's just poor usage in certain scenes. 2 scenes come to mind especially.
It needs to be a little more diegetic.
Nuanced, yeah.
Well, add it in the movie. If a radio is on, yes.
A jukebox is playing.
Jukebox.
Yeah.
Somebody with earphones in, you're listening to it, it sounds like it's part of the soundtrack. Yeah. Then they take the earphones off, it fades away, and that's dialogue. Those sort of little...
Yeah.
But, I don't know.
Especially because character-wise, that's music has zero value to somebody who hasn't been on the planet for 6 years.
As for the score, though, I think this is the one area where we may disagree. I think that people in general who love the Avengers theme, that it's largely Stockholm Syndrome.
No,
I recently rewatched the 1989 Batman, and there is something...
Classic Elfman before he started phoning it in and made everything sound like Batman.
Yeah. And
it is unique. But then again, we didn't get these movies every 6 weeks. Not even every year. Every, 3 months we get one of these movies now.
But John Williams has been known to crank out entire orchestras for movies and never having actually listened to them afterwards himself or listened to them in the movies. There are a couple movies that I know... I can't remember. It was an interview with him, I think, but he even said, I never saw that movie that I wrote the soundtrack for. Oh, okay, you're John Williams. I guess you can do that.
Yeah.
But... I could have also just made that up, but I remember it. It's in my head. Therefore,
it is my reality.
the Berenstein Bears.
Yeah.
So far, we haven't actually talked about the movie, though. We've talked about the soundtrack. We talked about the nostalgia. Acting, I couldn't quite get a read on Brie Larson. She changed her character and how she portrayed it so many times.
I think there was the snark throughout. And I was sort of fine with that because I feel like, you lose your memory, but you're still you. But, that never even really came up. Because the scene I'm thinking of is, so at the very beginning, she cheats in a sparring session with Jude Law.
Mm-hmm.
And then when she's talking to Maria, when she finally is back on Earth, and they're talking about, how they used to race to the airport, she says she would cheat. She would take an extra route. And she, without a beat, and not knowing the character, at least to her anymore, is that's not cheating. And I'm see, that's her character.
Okay.
That's some of her character. And then...
I didn't catch that.
And then even in the script, though, they didn't reference it. You haven't changed at all. That would have been where you put a line like that and maybe actually inject some reality into this movie. And I don't mean, that this movie is, that insane. It's just... Scenes that should have more character, hey, you're meeting your best friend that you don't remember, should be a lot more weighty, and they aren't. Instead, we get overused, horrible child actor scenes with some of the worst child dialogue I've ever heard. Why didn't her lines need rewrites? She literally becomes exposition kid, and it's awful.
Mm-hmm. What's the name of the guy that gets shot out of the sky in Don Cheadle's character?
Rhodey?
Rhodey. Hello, female Rhodey.
Yeah, just...
it's just...
For anyone who fell asleep because they weren't hearing pop songs and seeing laser blasts,
But I'm talking about her best friend.
Yeah.
With female Rhodey.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Part of it is... I don't know. A lot of Marvel now just feels recycled right down to the archetypes of the supporting characters.
And this is without you realizing that in comic continuity, guess who was also a raging alcoholic for a little while?
Who?
Captain Marvel.
No shit.
No, no.
I had no idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was a chunk of time when she was a raging alcoholic in the comics too. So there's even another mirror there.
So someone who gains the ability to fly and shoot laser blasts out of their hand,
Well,
who is a raging
you know the
alcoholic.
X-Man Rogue, right?
Yeah,
How do you think Rogue got super strength and flight?
Captain Marvel.
Yeah, she stole all of Captain Marvel's powers when she was a villain for a little while. So there's stuff that never would make it into the character, but what I'm getting at is Captain Marvel, Ms. Marvel, if I may, because that was her original character name. I'm fine with her being Captain Marvel, honestly. She was always just there, and a power. She was always a character with a power set and not much character. She had occasional solo titles, but never really nothing that lasted long enough to like flesh her out as a character. She was always that Avenger that can also fly and shoot laser blasts. So a lot of this movie and her character is based on, from what I can gather, the character she has had written since about 2008, when they started really trying to like make her an important character. Before this movie was probably even in the works.
But that's also not an excuse.
No.
I'm going to use Game of Thrones as another example because it's something a lot of people know. But characters like Osha, the wildling woman,
Mm-hmm.
she was nothing in the books. She's barely there.
Yeah.
And they fleshed her out, and they got a good actress to portray her, and it turned her from a very one-dimensional character, like how you're describing Captain Marvel, Miss Marvel, into something that was more than that. And when you're jumping from medium to medium, you have the opportunity to rework a character. And I don't really think that they did much of that in this.
No. There wasn't really any. Is Brie Larson a bad actress, or did she just phone a lot of this in, or is it a combination of phoning it in and not having a lot of meat there to work with, which I'm thinking it is. But like, there wasn't really any visceral reaction to "Holy shit, you lied to me for 6 years."
I'm gonna say,
and I think a lot of it is just, hey, I have really good laser powers. Like, fuck you guys.
I'm gonna say at least a good chunk of it is bad writing. At the end, though, when they start playing Human Space Invaders with her just flying through everything,
and then you realize there's a huge problem coming up because she's way overpowered.
Yeah.
Even in a universe with Thor, where we've seen Thor get his ass kicked good enough, she has not gotten touched.
When Thor goes off at the end of Infinity War, I feel like you've played things like Gauntlet Legends. When you get enough power bars saved up,
it's you feel like you watch enough to earn that, like, oh, I forgot he could like do this occasionally. Occasionally.
Yeah. Right, and that's just it. The little things pop out of her neck, and all of a sudden she has no limits to what she can do. And I'm going to be interested to see how they rein that back in for whatever the next movie is, because poor Hawkeye is more and more out of his league with every movie.
Have you seen the trailers for Infinity War? How awesome is it that they haven't leaked anything plot relevant?
Well, that's what trailer houses do. The new Game of Thrones trailer.
Yeah.
Nothing is leaked. You're just showing exciting images to get people pumped up.
Well, no, I'm saying, like, how nice is it that in the modern era where you can tell an entire movie from a trailer, at least they know that people want this to be an experience, so they're not giving enough away. I like this.
Oh,
like, I watched what was it? Trailer 2 came out like this week, and I was like, oh crap, is everything gonna be spoiled? And like, no, it's all just personal extrapolation. Like, I get the feeling that this is gonna be Hawkeye's movie.
Side note, speaking of trailers, did your movie theater have the Godzilla King of the Monsters trailer?
I can't wait for that movie.
I am so excited to see.
I like that we're both on the King Ghidorah is fucking magnificent, and I will bow to that man.
I'm not sure how I feel about the fact that they used unused Stranger Things footage of 11. Because I saw, what's her name? What's the actress's name?
Millie Bobby Brown?
Yeah, her. There's a scene with her sitting on the ground, hand over her ear, screaming. Like, I've seen this before.
Yeah. Show me monsters. Show me action figures hitting each other. This is a movie I want to see very badly because It's gonna be action figures hitting each other, and it's gonna be magnificent.
Is it the same person? Was it Gareth Edwards who
I
did the
think
first
it
one?
is. I think it is.
If it's Gareth Edwards and he can keep the same visual style and everything, and not let too much of
Boring
that
human
awful
military man plot element come in.
or I is King Kong in this one?
No, thank God.
Because I know they're doing a crossover with that.
I don't know if it'll be possible because you have like he's gonna be punching way out of his weight class because King Ghidorah is fucking amazing.
And Mothra
Yeah.
actually
Like
looked,
you don't need King Kong. You have the literal guardian of the earth, Mothra and Godzilla. They're gonna flub something. Something's gonna get ruined, but like the Japanese have a heavy hand in this. Like, don't fuck up our like thing. So I expect it to be super awesome. And probably not watched because a lot of mainstream America doesn't get why those movies are awesome. They're stupid and fun.
I will be there probably opening weekend for that movie.
Let me know because I cannot wait for King of I cannot wait for this movie.
2 months.
Like it's gonna be everything we hate about movies. It's like it looks like Knowing and 2011 and all this just with all the everything getting destroyed. But it's like that's the point of Godzilla movies.
Yes, exactly. This is. It's not trying to be Schindler's List.
No.
It's going to be a Godzilla movie.
Yeah.
Back to Captain.
Captain
Marvel.
Beige. Captain Beige.
I almost don't want to go back to talking about it. I'd rather talk about not King Kong. Jesus. Godzilla.
Okay, let's try to retract this. Hey, how awesome is it to see a movie where what's his name doesn't have to be a bad guy?
Yeah.
Even though he has to play a kind of an asshole.
For the
But Ben Mendelsohn is not a villain in this movie, despite them trying to make you think he is a villain.
And then when you actually get the reveal that he isn't, he was
really good. He's probably the best character in the movie.
Reminded me of what's his name's performance in Guardians 2. Mary Poppins.
Yondu. Yondu is the character.
Actor though.
I can't remember.
This
is a movie with a Mallrats script in it, and I can't remember. But no, like he's Ben Mendelsohn's the actual heart of this movie because Brie Larson's paper thin wafer character is not able to carry her own solo picture.
Nick Fury was more of a character.
I think him being in the movie as long as he is what made it interesting and also probably kept the plot from happening.
I was just happy to see
she was
Sam
a sidekick
Jackson.
in her own movie. It was basically this is the origin of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah. No, I was happy to see Sam Jackson though actually acting.
Yeah,
because
not just show up for 5 minutes, be cool, say some really good lines, and then everybody wonders
and be over the top. Be Sam Jackson.
Yeah.
It almost felt like this is the first movie in a while that he enjoyed actually being in.
Yeah. It's because he's a supporting character. He's not with Sam Jackson. He's not like the throw in, we're gonna give you 2 scenes character. And he's also presumably where all the billions of dollars of budget went because he seamlessly looks like 1995 Sam Jackson throughout the entirety of the movie.
I don't know. Pull up a picture of him from Pulp Fiction, which is only a couple years off from that.
Yeah.
He looks older.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, he did a good enough job of putting his hairline and like
that was fun.
His face to where, not the real man, but like he looks like what age his character should be in 95.
But you could see it in his eyes.
Yeah.
Those tired eyes that have seen far too many bad
Better
movies.
Better than fake Grand Moff Tarkin, at least.
True. This is you gotta think that Mace Windu was in between these time periods, so that can crush a man's soul.
Yeah.
But the movie itself was just I don't want to say totally mindless entertainment, but mostly.
It was a jumbled plot that could have been interesting. Like we were saying, failingly, that maybe something in editing could have fixed something, but I don't know. I feel like
it was a fun popcorn movie.
Yeah, I feel like you had two real plot lines of are they on the level with her? Like, what the hell is really going on? Who is she? Why does she have these memories of a life on Earth? Because of course she's from Earth.
Yeah.
And The other plot is surprise, the Kree are literal like Nazis.
Here's a question for you then, because you have to draw at least some parallels. If you had to choose, gun to your head, which was the better movie, this or Wonder Woman?
Wonder Woman was a far better movie. It's the first time I could ever say that DC did it better. And I think they kind of had help because Wonder Woman is a far more recognizable character. Marvel was probably pissed when Wonder Woman was announced and DC didn't fumble it and delay it to where this would have come out first, because I think even if this had come out first and Marvel could be like, hey, look, we're the first studio to do a big budget female driven superhero movie, I think Wonder Woman still would have beat this. Even with how average Wonder Woman is, it's a far better picture.
The ending falls apart for Wonder Woman, but I was thinking about this before we started recording, and Wonder Woman versus Captain Marvel. A couple years later, I still have crisp in my head the image of Wonder Woman walking through the trenches of World War One with her shield up.
And well, this is why. Think of the two scenes we're thinking of. If you've seen Wonder Woman, of course, is when she finally, like, literally walks through no man's land, impervious, and it's awesome. And one of the few good uses of slow motion in a DC picture. And when you really think about it in terms of the character, that was a super low stakes event for that character. In Captain Marvel, the scene that people didn't realize it was pivotal in the movie because it was just in the trailers, was the standing up scene. And everybody kind of made fun of it. They were like, in Captain Marvel, everybody's gonna stand up, like just joking about it. But it was pivotal, and I thought it was okay because I was like, oh, I get what they're doing, and like for a young girl that might be empowering, but the character didn't feel like she earned it, and it was a plot pivotal scene too. But even in the movie, it kind of falls flat because it didn't really feel earned because you don't really feel that much for the character.
No, and you needed a swelling score. You needed some more dynamic camera angles of the whole thing, and I don't know. It needed more. Just overall.
I think it needed the build up in terms of you needed to care more about her.
And I didn't,
because there's never really any point where she's not able to handle anything thrown at her.
Yeah, there's never any
until
point.
that scene, really, when they're like, we could turn off your powers.
But I never thought at any point. I never felt, oh my god, this character could fail. Like when Furiosa gets stabbed during the final chase scene, you think, holy shit, they may actually kill off Furiosa. Yeah. Fury Road, for the one person listening to this that might not get that reference. But when she gets stabbed, you actually think, wow, she might fail. This might not go well.
Because even though she's on a shitball back planet like Earth, she still has her communicator, she still has her powers, nothing's taken from her. Like Thor lost everything when he landed on Earth.
True.
So she's never at square one. And the only thing driving her plot is trying to find out who she is. And it's like, yeah, existentially, that's a real like heavy burden, but you could literally punch yourself out of any situation that's going to come up in an action movie, because this is still an action movie.
And it's tough to not look at, when you're talking about The Lost Memory, you have to compare it to something like the Bourne movies. And the Bourne franchise, at least the first three movies, handled the loss of identity so much better.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, there's no mystery to it. You know right out from the get-go what her backstory is, even though she doesn't. Could you imagine if the Bourne movies were done that way?
Yeah. Would it have been, now this is just stupid and just spitballing, but what if she had hit with enough impact when she landed on Earth that she again forgot who she was and started mistaking both versions of her past? Like, what if when she's like, I'm Captain Carol Danvers, and was like, what? Who is that?
Yeah.
That would have been awesome. And maybe she didn't have access to her powers because she was just human again.
So
wondering why she's wearing an alien suit.
And then confuse the audience a little too, because the unreliable narrator can be such a powerful plot device that it would have kept us all guessing as she tried to figure it out. Yeah, that could have fixed it.
Maybe they didn't want her to ever be vulnerable in this movie, because this is supposed to be a female empowerment according to them, because she's never vulnerable really in this movie.
30 more seconds and we'll dive into that part of
Yeah.
it. I just want to say that you saying that made me think of the Civil War airport scene where I just didn't give a
'Cause
rat's ass.
nobody,
Because
nothing.
right.
You knew they weren't really going to kill each other.
There was no weight
Yeah.
to any of it. And that's this movie is almost an extended version of the airport fight.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go see it though. I mean, if you're looking to kill an afternoon,
You have to see it because
yeah. If you
spoilers, she's gonna be the new leader of the Avengers once all the characters die off.
that's part of it. Yeah, you kind of have to if you want to stay up to date with Marvel. It really isn't as awful as we're making it out to be.
I think we make it seem more awful than I thought it was. It was entertaining enough, because it didn't subvert expectations. It diverged from a standard tropey plot enough in a way at the end that it like still kept you interested, but then by the end you're like, I care more about the side characters entirely in this movie than the main character.
And the side characters did, yeah. You took the words right out of my mouth. The side characters are what kept the movie interesting.
Go see this movie to see Ben Mendelsohn in heavy prosthetics still carrying a good performance throughout.
Well said. All right. So the the social aspect of the movie. Who is the guy that directed Ghostbusters 2016?
Kevin Feige? No, Kevin Feige is the Marvel guy.
Yeah.
Paul Feig.
Paul Feig. Are they the same person?
No.
Oh, okay. I get them all confused.
It's like a Shazam thing.
Yeah.
They say a word. they say blockbuster, and then they turn into the other one so that they
Feige,
can
Feige.
through cross purposes help two studios control all of the world.
That famous speech that he gave where he just starts mumbling the words women, STEM, that famous speech really reminded me of some of the canned stuff that Brie Larson was saying when she was being interviewed.
Which gets back to my little diatribe at the beginning of this. I think that was coached. Because she reminds me of kind of how I would be when trying to act like I care about other people. And that she can't hide her, I don't give a fuck about anybody else.
I'm doing this so I don't get fined. Thanks, Marshawn.
Yeah, it and like I said, I saw a edited for the sake of parody and not to denigrate her, because I don't think the RLM guys are trying to be anti-feminist, but like
No.
the way she delivered the comments that I saw made her seem like kind of lackadaisical and not realizing like how her tone would help both sides of the aisle. I feel like real feminists would be like, you're making us look bad because you're just coming off kind of bitchy. And I don't mean like to say, oh, you're like bitch, all that, but she just comes off as very blasé with what she's saying and not like she cares, not like she actually believes what she's saying.
Say what you want.
Yeah.
When you saw interviews with the cast of Black Panther, they really believed in what they were doing.
Yeah.
Her, I don't know. I didn't get it.
It kind of felt to me like like I said, they saw the movie, they were like, it's good, but like, how do we really get as much money out of it as we can? Well, let's really push that we're trying to make this a feminist picture. What does that even mean? Like, I don't know. I went and saw it and I enjoyed it enough as a white man.
Yeah.
Because I like Marvel characters, and even what I have read of Captain Marvel, she's kind of cool in certain situations too.
Do you know the YouTube channel Folding Ideas?
No.
There's an excellent little mini episode that he did where he talks about whether or not he feels that Fury Road is a feminist movie. And he put it very well that no movie could be 100% feminist or any sort of ist. Because if you don't have any gray area to it, it's propaganda and not entertaining.
Yeah.
So, yeah, were there some feminist elements to this? Absolutely.
I don't think it was overt. That's
No.
what I was getting at. Like, it didn't go out of its way to be anti-Bechtel, to like make it obvious that men weren't the pivotal point of the movie, or that like, hey, this movie's really about women. Like, this movie's really about, like, it didn't go out of its way. It just was like, hey, when you think about it, there were like 3 male characters in the movie. Okay.
Early in the movie, she steals a motorcycle. from that guy who tells her
That's like the only misogynist character in the entire movie is this dumb guy who, like, I think we made him dumb and a bit of a bastard because we want you to forget that she literally just committed a vehicular robbery because
like
she
Captain
thinks
America,
because she thinks she's an
1989.
alien and is therefore superior to the human being.
But
And then she hilariously drives on the opposite side of the road because I like those elements of this movie that, like, Earth is a backwater that they don't fucking care about our rules.
they even say that
Yeah.
that it's a backwater. I
They
don't
call
think
it
they
a
use the
shithole or a shithole. Have you ever been to, what was it? Have you ever been to Planet 336 or whatever it is? Yeah, it's a real shithole.
C-53.
Yeah, C-53. It's a real shithole.
I wonder if that was a swipe at our beloved Commander in Chief and all of his shithole
Oh, that would have been
comments.
funny. I might actually like that line more because of that.
Once you realize that they're the villains and, like
Yeah.
you said, almost literal Nazis.
Yeah.
Oh, where were we though? Oh, so this reminded me a lot of the hype before the 2016 Ghostbusters,
Yeah.
where there was more
But
talk
I think
about.
that movie was more overtly trying to be
Oh, absolutely.
in
'cause
its
they-
writing and its yeah.
Yeah, they knew that they didn't have a good movie,
Yeah.
so
that
they
was-
needed to do something. And when they started deleting selected comments from the YouTube trailer and only leaving the misogynistic ones, you know about that, right?
To tailor the narrative, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that they did this, but I do think they leaned into it just enough to get that sort of hype around it. But that hype was going to happen no matter what, because it's always going to be neckbeards versus white knights.
Yeah. The fun secret war that gets fought in society today. But
I
yeah,
just wanna see a good movie.
I don't think our Rotten Tomatoes had to go exterminate us on everything. Because I think that just fanned the flames. But it's like, I don't think it was ever the agenda of this movie. I think it was like, hey, Wonder Woman proved that you could do a female empowerment superhero movie, and we're just gonna do the same thing. It just kind of stinks that our character is not as important in the grand scheme of everything, and not as iconic culturally, and the film itself is about as good or slightly below that movie's standard.
And they both ended the same way with a long CG fight scene.
Yeah.
That I get it. You've got a lot of people in the audience who are still at the age where action impresses them,
Mm-hmm.
even if that action doesn't really drive the plot much.
Yeah. And it's
I
just
mean-
the whole time, just like, holy shit, she's way too strong.
And then at the very end, I really thought after she went through 3 or 4 different boss battles,
Yeah.
that she was gonna have to fight Jude Law at the very end.
That's why
And
I
there
liked
was-
that. It was just, fuck you. I don't need to prove anything.
It was very much the pistol versus the sword.
It felt like
Indiana Jones.
It felt like live TV. We need to go home. We're over time.
Yeah,
Shit.
No, Indiana Jones, where the guy pulls out the scimitar and
Yes,
Indy
yes.
just shoots him. And, you know, I appreciate the fake out that we thought we were gonna have to watch another boss
But
battle.
at the
and she just
same
ends it.
time, in terms of a film, you completely marginalized your main villain because your main character's too powerful.
I just watched the 2009 Sherlock again, and Jude Law had a lot of fun in that movie.
Yeah.
There were times where I forgot that this was Jude Law.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Because he's just a nobody.
But I think it also could be the writing.
Yeah.
Same thing with Brie Larson. I have not seen enough stuff with Brie Larson in
Me
it.
either. That's why I'm thinking it's either phoned in or I'm probably leaning towards it's just that thin of a movie that she did what she had
Which
to work
could
with.
with it.
Yeah. And like I said, character-wise, Captain Marvel, Ms. Marvel doesn't have that much unless you're going way back and you're looking at certain writers. But this movie was leaning towards the contemporary adaptation, and the contemporary adaptation is kind of just she says snarky things every once in a while, and she's very like self-assured. But you really can't go that far with that. Like, there's not a lot of depth to that kind of character.
Just like there wasn't a lot of depth, like the standing up scene with the montage of all the times that she fell and got back
Yeah,
up during her life. It
I
felt,
wish it had more weight because I thought it was the best scene in the movie.
Yes, 100%, but it had no weight to it because there was nothing other than those snippets of those things happening over the course of her life, you don't really get
You know
a
what?
feeling of.
You know what you needed? You needed the movie not to cold open with her already being a Kree Special Forces. You needed the movie to show her failing in the Kree Special Forces.
Oh God, no! What we needed was a more traditional origin story.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is one of the
Unfortunately,
cases.
yeah.
Maybe
This is a character that has not shown up
I-
until now. So you don't have anything to fall back on for viewers. And that includes people like me who know the character because you have to establish the Marvel Cinematic Universe version of this character.
But you also, if you've seen the Marvel movies, you already know that she is some sort of major power player.
Yeah.
So there's not really a lot of mystery. You already know, okay, she's going to be super powerful. So they could have justified not really showing her backstory that way. But there's a scene where she's driving a go-kart and crashes, and her dad's telling her, I told you not to drive the go-kart. Where was her relationship with her dad?
Yeah.
But you needed more of that sort of stuff. You needed Kevin Costner as Pa Kent again. Really, actually get, even if the movie
Stop invulnerable son.
Yeah. I mean, even though she wasn't that yet, you needed I don't know, you needed some sort of established conflict other than average, guy in a bar being an asshole.
Yeah.
or
you needed more time before she knew Annette Bening was Captain Marvel. Like,
Yeah.
of them just being on the airbase and her, like, maybe her getting shit from other male pilots or other pilots in general, and Annette Bening just being like, don't listen to those assholes, like, do what you want to do. Like, you needed more character for certain characters that were told to you are important characters.
Oh God.
Because your only exposure to Annette Bening is fake Annette Bening.
Actress that played Claire Underwood. Why can't I think of her name? She also played the older woman in the elder in Wonder Woman.
She was in. It's
Blade Runner. She was in Blade Runner 2049. She's the police captain.
I don't know.
Claire Underwood? Yeah.
No, Wonder Woman's mother was played by the actress who played the female lead in Gladiator.
No, not her mother, but there was Underwood actress.
In what?
Robin Wright.
Was that in Wonder Woman?
Robin Wright was in Wonder Woman.
I haven't watched Wonder Woman.
Are you? I'm 90% sure.
No, her mother was.
I'm not saying
Was
she was
Robin
the
Wright? Was
mother.
Robin Wright the Amazon in charge of like the security forces? Because her mother was the German actress who played the main female lead in Gladiator.
Antiope? I don't know if I'm
I think
pronouncing that right.
I think Robert Wright was like the leader.
Yeah,
of the,
well, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Her. But she looked up to her. You needed that character, and you had it with Annette Bening, but you never fleshed it out.
Yeah.
That took way too long for me to make that point.
Benning's true identity was too pivotal to the you don't know who you are, but also the you're being lied to plots.
But I think it would have been really, really neat to see, okay, this Carol has always, gotten back up when she was told that.
Yeah. Other than in montages that happen either too early or too late in narrative for anything that really mattered to you.
But having that character be the first person to truly support her and get that emotional connection between the two.
Yeah.
It's implied, but it's never shown. And that's what you needed.
Yeah.
I don't know. We've already talked for 50 minutes about this.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's really much more we can say.
Yeah.
Yeah, go see it. Get popcorn. Have fun with it. Make sure you're there early for the Godzilla preview.
Yes.
You got to watch this if you want to see Endgame.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're that pumped for Endgame because of how good Infinity War was, you're already heavily into the Marvel continuity, so you're gonna see this anyways.
Oh, I was.
In a way, it kind of feels like it's that type of like we're almost getting to that point with these movies where it's like we know you're invested, you're gonna see anything we put out.
Yeah, and I actually watched Ant-Man and the Wasp.
I did too. how average, except for the end credit scene,
But
which is
both of
exactly what I
these-
expected.
Both of these movies were average.
Yeah. But I feel like
And-
Ant-Man and the Wasp gets away with it because Ant-Man and the Wasp is intentionally more comedic and relies on Paul Rudd. Whereas this movie has Sam Jackson as the name brand and are trying to establish Brie Larson.
I think the MCU is turning into a season of The Walking Dead where the premiere and the finale are excellent, and you have to watch everything else in
Everything in
between,
between.
as garbage as it could be.
Yeah, it's the decompression. It's the we have to tell a lot of stories between the shooting and production of what really we want to see. It in comic terms, it's the side stories or one shots in the middle of a main event. Like you've got the event book, which is like, oh right,
Yeah,
we know
like Civil War almost.
we're getting 8 issues of the main event, but like if you've been reading like West Coast Avengers, you have a 3-part West Coast Avengers story, and you're like, well, I read that book, so I'll read this, and then you're like, oh, this has no plot relevance whatsoever. I wasted $15 on issues on that.
If you don't follow Patrick Willems on YouTube, you probably should, because he just did an excellent essay on what's wrong with the MCU. And as much as he likes the movies, he wants to love them and said he can't figure out why.
Yeah.
So he breaks down all of the issues that you're talking about and how you would get, these huge tentpole event comics,
Yeah.
but you only care about the events of those tentpole comics because you got 2 years between them where you actually care about what's
Well,
going on in the lives of the characters.
It's little things. It's little things that you don't realize right away. Like you kind of forget that Thor has a prosthetic eye because he lost it in Ragnarok, which was a huge character moment because it's like you've become your father. You're in charge of what's left of your race. But then they immediately are like, yeah, that would be annoying to have to film with. And like we want people to find these movies accessible, so we'll make him immediately look like Thor, but only you realize as a viewer that he's had that character growth. It happens in comics all the time. Like Captain America's shield has been shattered enough times that it's like actually got visible like cracks in it, but you never see that because that might have happened in an event 10 years ago. But like it was symbolic in that as a like this event happened, and eventually like erosion, everything just goes back to status quo.
Yeah.
And these movies have been around long enough that everything goes back to status quo. And I think we're going to get to the point probably in whatever the next phase is where people are going to tune out even to the tentpole ones because you don't get any bigger than the Infinity War. Even in the current continuity, you don't get any bigger than the Infinity War. It's still, even though I think it came out in like the early 80s, it's still one of those like
Iconic.
how old are you, kid? Oh, I'm 17. I really like comics because of the movies. Have you read Infinity War? No. Read Infinity War. Hey, have you ever read, and I'm even saying this to you, The Death of Captain Marvel, the original Captain Marvel?
No.
It's phenomenal. It is literally a character dying of cancer, and it's handled in the best way.
Oh shit.
The original Captain Marvel, here just to end the episode and like flex my nerd on you. The original Captain Marvel is one of a small handful, which includes Uncle Ben and Captain Marvel of Marvel characters that never come back to life for any long period of time. Like maybe Ben's ghost shows up or he comes back in some weird what if event or whatever. That's the only time they ever use the original Captain Marvel because they honor the fact that he died of a debilitating disease.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
Huh.
So there's like actual weight to that character that like you wish there was to a lot of characters in these movies, but there's money to be made.
So I guess in closing,
I'm still probably gonna cry when Captain America dies for real, because like Chris Evans is going to not be back, so he will, for all intents and purposes, be dead until in 20 years Marvel recasts him and I get mad as an old man.
Aren't they redoing the Matrix too? It's been 20 years.
Oh man,
I don't know, but that's
1995 was long enough ago that I'm pretty sure they're gonna bring Monica, the bad little girl character actor, up as an Avenger because her character is an Avenger. It's been 15 years. She was like 12 in 95. She's gonna be old enough that probably she's gonna get powers.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's the kind of seeds that I look for as a comic reader.
And it's a nice surprise to me as a non-comic
Yeah.
reader that they set that up and then paid it off. But I guess the conclusion is we increasingly have to say with every movie, ignore the social dialogue about the movie, because a lot of it is either fabricated or just used to drive, I don't know, drive people to the theaters, or just to spark conversation for viral marketing purposes. Is that, would you consider all these social conversations a form of viral marketing?
Probably. Like I said, I think just in terms of this movie, Marvel overemphasized the feminist angle to try to keep interest in a movie that was coming out this point in the year, one of the doldrums in movie going,
Yeah.
and this close to what everybody who's into these is really looking forward to, because it's literally a month away, like a month and a week away. I think April 28th or April 27th.
And
I can't believe it's that close.
As soon as we're done with that, we can get Godzilla.
Yes.
Early
Early May.
Any last thoughts? Go see it. It's a Marvel movie. It was perfectly adequate as an entertaining, middle of the road, milquetoast Marvel movie.
Yes. And regardless of what you think of Stan Lee, I think he overemphasized his importance. I think he threw away a lot of what his artists and writers had to contribute. Probably the best tribute to Stan Lee, and one of the best, if you're a movie fan like us, Stan Lee cameos.
Oh yeah, holding the Mallrats script.
Yes.
I actually felt good for Kevin Smith when I saw that.
I saw the Mallrats script and I clapped.
No, it wasn't one of those moments.
No,
It was, this guy has been part of that culture for so long
Yeah.
that it's nice to say, hey, we see you. You're part of us.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yep. It's Marvel boilerplate, but you have to see it if you're invested like we are.
Yeah. Go in, open mind, ignore the social stuff. Watch it for the average blockbuster that it is.
Yep.
Cool.
Get ready for the really good one. Hopefully. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
They can't mess this one up. Famous last words.
I think I said that right before episode 1
Tune
came
in
out.
for our next episode where we analyze for an agonizingly long time the fact that only 2 characters on the poster are looking to the left. Dun dun dun.
If we're ever that people, if we're ever those people, yeah, put a bullet in us. On that note, thanks for listening, and we'll be back soon.